Welcome back to another edition of Real Spiritual Talk Radio. I'm your host, Lamont Gates, bringing you the world of faith, metaphysicality, and spirituality. Today, my guest discovered a spiritual reality that left her without the words to fully describe it. Joining me today, ladies and gentlemen, is near-death experiencer Leena Zafary. Leena, welcome to Real Spiritual Talk Radio.
Thank you very much for having me, Lamont.
Absolutely, no problem at all. Now, Leena, I want to start off before we get into your near-death experience with a religious question.
Okay.
Did you have any particular religion or spiritual beliefs prior to having your near-death experience?
We're gonna get right into it. Okay. Yes. So I grew up in a Muslim household, Muslim family. I grew up with Islamic teachings. I myself wasn't very much of a obedient follower, as you could say, but nonetheless, yes, I grew up in a Muslim family.
So Islam, but not very observant.
I would say not, no.
Okay, no problem at all. So why don't we get into it? What was it that triggered your near-death experience to occur?
Ah, so my near death happened in 2014. And honestly, I was a very healthy, happy individual at the time. This was 11 years ago. So there was no lingering disease or anything like that. But what did happen to me was I caught a common cold, which progressed very quickly into what turned out or became the H1N1 virus back in 2014. So I guess the cause of my experience was lung failure due to the H1N1 virus, which I was in the hospital for. So that was the start of it.
Yeah, and I believe that's also known as the swine flu. Actually took a lot of people out. So I understand the severity of it. Now, while you were in the hospital, tell us what happened next that actually catapulted you into this otherworldly reality.
Well, so the hospital stay in totality was about 9 days. So I was the first 3 days I was in the hospital, I was fairly coherent and up, and I was having difficulty breathing. So I was hooked up to ventilator and you know pumps on my legs. So I wasn't really fully, but I was still okay. But somehow on the third day, conditions got worse, and my lungs, I guess both of them decided to, go the opposite direction of healthy. So, which kind of landed me into the ICU. Now, I'm just telling you based on, what happened to me. I wasn't fully conscious or aware the whole time I was there, but in that 9 days, I was pretty much under whatever you want to call it, but I would have moments of where I'd wake up and come to and, you know, uh, try to convince or the doctors in the hospitals that I was okay and that I needed to go home. So, but beyond that, I don't know what else, but I was um, in the ICU for 5 days, unable to breathe on my own, and my lungs were continuously getting worse. And from what the doctors taking care of me was telling my family was that I was unresponsive to any of the treatments that they were giving me, and so that was kind of the it was getting really towards that place to where like there's nothing else we could do. Just
Yeah, yeah. So when did you realize while you're in this condition that you are no longer in this earthly reality anymore?
so the point where I realized, well, I never really realized because I didn't know something had happened to me. I knew I was in the hospital, but the moment where I woke up, it was literally a moment where I literally woke up, like the way I'm sitting with you. I just got up, and I just happened to realize that I was sitting, and I was sitting at the edge of my hospital bed, and I was fully conscious and fully awake and fully aware. But the only thing is I'm looking around in the room, to just kind of see where I'm at. What I'm noticing and realizing that I'm sitting at the edge of a hospital bed where my body's laying. So my body was just laying there on the hospital bed. Now, while I'm looking at my body on the bed here, there's really no attachment connection or anything. It's just an awareness that there's my body, but I'm fully here and I'm fully healthy, fully alive. It's like looking at my clothes. So there's no connection to it. But what I realized was the body that was laying there and the condition it was in full hospital gown. And I had these four people on both sides of me. They were just there and they were working on me. Now I didn't get like a look of who they were, what they looked like, what they were doing, but it was almost these four people who were both on both sides of me standing there. And at first I thought those were my doctors and nurses taking care of me. And to be honest with you, I still think that that's what they were. I don't know, because what I saw was from this perspective of being on the other side, which meant I was seeing everything for what it was. So I saw that. And as I'm looking around, now we are talking about my actual near-death experience. I don't have this awareness or understanding that I'm alive or dead or here or there. I'm just like I am observing what's happening. And in my observation of what's happening is after noticing my body, I hear a voice, very, very loud, very audible, very clear. It was a kind voice, but it was a stern voice, but it was a female voice that said, Leena, you have to go back. You have to go back. Your kids are waiting for you, but you have to decide. And as I'm listening to that, I'm realizing or not realizing, but I'm still looking around. And as I'm looking around, what I'm noticing and realizing to my left is my kids. Now, I didn't really give you a backstory of who I am and where I'm at this point, but my near-death experience happened it was very fast in a sense that not a lot of stuff happened. I was there and I was given a choice. I saw my children, and then, before I made the decision to come back, which I don't recall making the decision. But the reason why these things are important is because at the time, before my near-death experience, I told you I was a very healthy, happy individual. I was married, happily married. I was a mother of two young children. So what had my spirits and my soul at unease while I'm in this space is that I recognized and I realized that I'm in this space and that my kids were both needing me. So my daughter was nursing at the time and my son was about to turn 5. So these are very, very important, poignant times in both of their lives. And I'm realizing their need for me and my need for me to be there, having this awareness that I was aware of the time period because my son's birthday is January 13. And all this is taking place merely days before it. I was released from the hospital January 12th, one day before my son's birthday. So my soul was in anguish to go home. That's why when I told you I was in the hospital for the 9 days, the only memory recollection I have is this wanting to get up and get out and go home because I needed to be there for my son's birthday and also for my daughter who is still nursing. So that was my only, that I was consumed by that. So in my near-death experience, while this is happening and I'm seeing, right, I am in pure happiness, light. There's just a slight airy feeling. But the moment I see my children, it's almost like light becoming brighter, it becoming lighter. It was almost like the air becoming fresher. It's almost like you open your windows and this beautiful breeze comes in. Everything just uplifted for me. It stirred my soul to see my two kids in front of me, because the only thing I was yearning in my stay was to get back because of those two reasons: his birthday and her needing me. So my near-death experience was impactful and powerful because it was the love that I felt as a mother for my children and their need for me here that I feel brought me back. But so as that's happening, as the joy in me is completely lit because I'm seeing my babies finally, what I noticed also was in the distance, I could see through, and it's almost like I'm seeing the depths and darkness of a night sky. And in that darkness, I can literally see rows of people sitting, but they're so far back that all I'm able to see is just this dark silhouette of people. And as I'm witnessing them sitting there, I don't hear them, but I feel them. And I know that they're sitting there praying for me. So they're in prayer for me. And the knowing of them sitting there in prayer for me and the joy that I felt between seeing my children, I don't know what happened, but it just like there was this explosion of energy, amplification of light. I don't know what but it was just incredible. Like when I say ineffable, I don't know how else to describe it. Those words fall short to what I felt. But an extraordinary thing happened in that space. And what happened is my desire to look at who these people were, like I wanted to know who they were, because I recognized them as people alive here on earth, not as souls that's already passed on. Because a lot of now I understand, I didn't know it then, but you know how a lot of near-death experiencers say that they were met by deceased loved ones or pets and stuff. For me, none of that occurred. But what did occur was I was able to tap into the emotional state of people here who were praying for me and the connection with my kids. So I was very much anchored from up there to here. And in that space, when I looked out into the darkness of everybody praying for me, what happened was everybody just kind of lifted up. And as they came closer so that I could see who they were, I can no longer see them. What I see is light, like the tip of a candle. I was going to light my candle and show you, and I forgot. But I saw everybody as light and as the flame of a candle. And I found that so fascinating. And it was just kind of like, wow, that is so beautiful. And I just happened to look at a few more people. As I'm looking at them and they're coming up, I'm also noticing at the same time that this voice that I'm hearing is also kind of like knocking on my inside mind, kind of reminding me of the urgency of me needing to make a decision. It's kind of like this urgency, like, Leena, you need to hurry up and make a decision. Like, you got to hurry up. You've got to go. And that at that moment, everything stopped. Everything ended. I did not come back to my actual conscious awareness in my physical body until the next day, I think, or that evening. I don't know when I came to, but I just want to share something very interesting, or a couple things. First, having a near-death experience is one thing, right? But not knowing anything about it, and then it happened to you is a whole nother thing. And then when I came back, I had a miraculous healing. I went from both lungs damaged from the virus, H1N1, the swine flu. Um, and I instantly wake up. I get up and I'm healed. I'm breathing on my own. I'm no longer requiring the what's been on my face for 1 week. I'm literally up talking, and I was hungry and I asked for food. And I had a conversation, which I'm not consciously at all to this day completely unaware of. But the reason why I know it took place is because at the time, my husband took pictures during my stay. So there's pictures of me in different stages in the hospital. And one of the pictures that he took was a picture of me after, where I was eating a burger in the hospital room, a burger, fries, and a drink. Apparently, I woke up and I was hungry and I asked for food and I got it. So even though I don't have a memory of it, but there's a picture of it. So that's kind of the story of my near death and what happened. And I hope I was able to kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds very fascinating. I'd just like to go back and ask a few follow-up questions, if I may.
Absolutely.
So it sounds as if when you went under and you came physically or spiritually, we should say, out of your body, you were sitting up, but you could turn around and see your physical body laid out.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then when I asked originally what it was like and how you knew you were no longer in this physical realm anymore, you stated something very interesting. You said you didn't know you were dead. It was as if you never ceased to exist. It's almost as if you went from one room into the next room, right?
I
Leaving.
love what you just said because, yes, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
just because I
That
was,
those are my favorites when they don't even know they're dead.
I never really put that little piece together like that. So thank you.
And
Okay.
and then you say you heard a voice, and you said this voice was audible. It was feminine, and it said to you, "You have to go back." And this is when you realize you had children to come back to. Many near-death experiencers who have children, who have their near-death experiences, very often they're told to come back because they have a purpose or a mission, and very often it's to take care of that child or to continue to be in that child or children's lives. You didn't immediately come back. You were given a choice, however. And in the midst of this, you were able to see some sort of opening and you saw a bunch of people there praying. You just knew they were praying. You said they were not deceased relatives, which makes sense that they were praying for you because they were people outside, most likely, of your hospital situation who wanted you to get better. And the best way they can do it is to pray for you. Now, as you zoomed into these people, you said you could see a flame in them. You could see their light, I guess their spiritual light.
Yeah.
And ultimately, again, you say you don't remember coming back, but you did come back to your body.
I did.
You were yearning to come back because of the children, the remembrance of having children while you were having your near-death experience, and here you are. So now I want to ask, many near-death experiencers talk about coming back with what they call after effects. After having a near-death experience, they talk about having higher empathy levels, having the lack of fear of death, premonitions, precognitions, etc. Did you notice anything different about you as you came back from your near-death experience?
Holy moly. Ah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The problem is I didn't know for another 5 years that I had a near death experience. And I didn't know that because I didn't know I had a near death experience, I didn't know that there's such thing as an after effects to an experience I didn't know I had. So there was no language for it and there was no nothing. So when I did try to, you know, tell the story to the people around me, they all kind of like, it was all the drugs that in the hospital that they gave you because for 5 days they had to give you all these drugs, like they chalked it off as that. So, and I didn't know that my condition was that severe they didn't tell me. My family was so traumatized in those 9 days that when I came home, it's almost like they didn't know what happened. They just knew that I went through something and survived, and they were just happy to get it over with and come home and live life and forget about it. And for the next 5 years, I didn't know to ask the questions. I didn't know. I was very clueless about the entire thing. But to answer your question, I was going absolutely berserk inside. Inside me, I was like, oh my God, I did not know that my sensitivities and my ability to see and hear and feel and think and hear all these things, all the stuff that I was getting, I didn't realize that that's what was happening. But I realized, and I didn't understand it. Like, my sensitivities were so severe that I would feel people's underlying emotions, not what they were showing. Like, you could be sitting here smiling, but if inside you're anxious, or if inside you're sad, or if inside you're grieving, but you're putting on that beautiful, brave face for the world, I would become very disoriented because I could see both and I couldn't understand why, how, and a lot of times I thought those emotions were mine, and I couldn't understand how I could be in such bliss and such fearless state of being. Because yeah, you lose fear of death, you lose that sense of fear and stuff. Everything becomes curiosity and an adventure and something to solve. So your mind becomes different. The way you look and the way you see and feel and observe the world changes. So all this was happening to me, and I I struggled with it, and I thought that was you know it took me a long time to understand that.
Yeah, it took you probably some time to adjust to everything after coming back from a near-death experience and having these particular after effects. That's one thing many near-death experiencers talk about. Sometimes they come back overjoyed. Sometimes they come back angry because they wanted to go back to where they were. And when they have these after effects, a lot of times they talk about how they can't control it. It's almost taken over them, and it takes them a while to adjust.
Because it's not something controllable. Because you have to understand that what I struggle with, I didn't realize, is that I can't control that. I can hear how you feel. I can't turn it off. I'd have to turn off your voice for me not to turn off how I hear you. So it's not like I have a volume adjustment on how I can feel things, like my taste buds. I taste things in a way that it is just, I can't turn that off. I taste something, I taste it, and that's with all my senses. And that's what people don't realize, is that when you come back, these senses, they are gifts. They're such beautiful gifts, but it's it's like giving a child something to play with before they know how to use it, like giving them knives to play with. Knives are fantastic to help us cook, do things, and create things and craft things. Given to the wrong person, they can hurt themselves. So it's kind of like that. If I don't know if that makes sense, but I mean,
Yes, yes. No, I understand. You know, something supernatural given to the natural is it's not going to probably sit too well, especially if you can't turn it off, if it doesn't have an off button, as you stated. We opened up the show talking about religion, and you said that you grew up in an Islamic household, but you weren't too observant. Now that you've had a near-death experience, or after your near-death experience, rather, what does religion look like to you?
wow. As far as religious views, I didn't really have understanding of religion in the context that made sense to me. Growing up, my awareness of the other realm always caused me to question religion in ways that never gave me a satisfactory answer that sufficed me. So I always had this skepticism, doubt thing with religion. It was never satisfied and got satisfied answers to make me, I don't want to say a believer, but really, like to calm my curiosities as a child. So afterwards, and in Islam, if you're Muslim, at least for my life and my upbringing, there's when you're Muslim, all other religions really fall short, and they don't. They're they're not really talked about. So there's really not much knowledge about outside religions, if that makes sense. At least from my experience, that's how it was. So after my near-death experience and after other experiences that I've had, I can honestly say that my belief on religion has expanded. It has become more grounded in a sense because now I feel like I have a more foundational understanding of religion, not just Islam, but all religions, Christianity, and even outside belief systems. Like I now have a better scope of understanding, seeing it from the light of from that different perspective. So I feel like now I have more love, tolerance, and acceptance to religion. As before, I was more intolerant. Now I view it more from a positive aspect, and I see more beauty in religion, in all religions, but I don't subscribe to a religion to say that I am Muslim or Christian or this or that. And but I love all of them. I see the beauty in all of them now in a way that I never did before.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense, especially the part of your near-death experience where you saw people praying for you that were
Yeah,
outside of you. 9 out of 10, those people were praying because they were religious, right? I doubt that they all had near-death experiences and knew what you knew about the afterlife. 9 out of 10, they were praying for you because they probably had some sort of faith or religion
yeah.
that kicked in at the time when you needed it most.
So here is my understanding and confirmation about praying. So I believe that there's no one way to pray. And I believe that the reason why I did not hear prayers, I did not hear either Islamic surahs, or I did not hear, quotes from the Bible. I didn't hear words, but I felt it. And the thing with me, I've always felt and said, and part of my resistance with Islam growing up was I was hung up on the words in the language to religion because I couldn't understand the religion. It was in an Arabic language. So for me, I never really prayed in my life because prayer never made sense to me. For me, I felt love all my life. And for me, that was my prayer. So when I was in my near death experience, and when I was shown these people, I was shown them sitting in prayer. I knew 100% that they were sitting there in prayer, and I knew they were praying for me. But the fact that I couldn't hear an audible prayer is, for me, confirmation that prayer is not words. Prayer is you being in your heart. Prayer is you feeling love. Prayer is you feeling gratitude and asking for something for somebody other than you. It's not gimme, gimme, gimme. Prayer is not give me this, give me that. I want this. Please help me, bless me, money. That's not prayer to me. And so for me, having my near-death experience and experiencing prayers and feeling it, and then seeing that it's the light in our hearts that is actual prayer, and what you just said really closes that for me. It's beyond words.
Yes, ineffable.
Ineffable.
And that's a great way to put it. Now, I understand that you are also some sort of therapist, coach, teacher, master of some sort. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Wow, those are some big titles and hats and stuff. I don't really do well with titles and all that stuff, because although I know that those are important milestones in understanding the physical world and the human body process, life, and all that, I kind of do a little bit of both. But yes, I do. In those 10, 11 years that it's been since my experience, in order to make sense of everything that was coming into me at those high speeds, in order to make sense of it, in order to ground myself into this world, into this body, and to be able to function, I had to learn how to integrate and balance myself. And I did that through so I learned how to meditate. I took courses and classes on coaching, because I thought, what is the best way for me to understand what happened to me than to be taught by people who teach people how to help people like me? Because there's really nobody to help me. Nobody understood what I was trying to say. Therapists, coaches, nobody really understood, because they hadn't had the experience I had. So they couldn't coach me in the way. So I learned coaching to understand that for myself. So I don't really wear coach hats, but yes, I consider like a life coach. And to go one step deeper and to really make sense of the vibrational world, in the process, I've kind of took up a hobby that have become a passion that became kind of what I do for a living. And that was in the area of bioacoustic biology and research. So basically what that is it's the study of the sound and frequency of your voice. So you know how in this healing world, in this healing space of energy, we talk about mindsets and emotional EQ. And then, we have the whole physical body thing, the somatics, relaxation, all that. So basically, what I do is I look at the body from mental, emotional, and physical space. And I have tools to do that for each of them. So for the physical body, I use bioacoustic biology, which is the science and research that shows what's going on in your body physically, through the sound of your own voice, because we are all energy in motion. Every thought creates an energetic vibration. The emotions that we feel is all energetic vibrations. We feel it. When we're excited, our body literally resonates and feels a certain frequency and emotion. When we're sad, we feel a different one. When we're angry, we feel. These are all emotions that vibrate, that are measurable by science today, in many different ways. So, I don't know if that answered your question as far as.
Yes. It sounds like, just like swine flu triggered ultimately your near-death experience. Your near-death experience triggered this hobby and this coaching assignment of yours, where you've gotten to know yourself much better to the point where you can now go out and try to help and heal others.
It's almost like you can only take somebody as far as you've been, right? And that's here on the physical realm, and also on the spiritual realm as well. So I had to do a lot of healing, mentally, emotionally, physically. I came back into the same body, but I came back so much more, so much more. And I had to bring all that more out into my world. And it's being expressed in the work that I do, even sharing my story with you right now, this is kind of like your purpose work. you know, the sharing of this story is so profound because it was the sharing of other people who came before me that shared their experiences that helped me put into context my experience and to help me understand and integrate. And that's the whole purpose. Once we find the light switch, we light it up so others in that direction can be seen, and can heal together, like that's what it's about. This is not so much to convince anybody or teach anybody anything, but to just, be and share for those who are searching and those who are tuning in and those who are listening. And,
Yeah, yeah. Well said. Well, Leena, I want to thank you for coming on Real Spiritual Talk Radio and sharing with us today that absolutely fascinating account.
thank you for having me.
No problem at all. Ladies and gentlemen, Leena Zafary.